95% of all cancers people experience have no hereditary linkage. That is an important thing for you to hear, because you hear about a cancer gene and did they inherit this, and that can be a factor. But if a person is healthy their whole life and carries a genetic mutation and at age 45 or 50 gets a cancer, you can't say that that gene makes cancer, or they would have had cancer the whole time. That gene can be a part of the disease, but the environment changed. Something else changed at that point. So environment determines gene expression, not the genes themselves, okay? This is a little bit about evolution. I'll go into that later. The bottom line is, and I'll explain more in my other talks, but there's a concept you've heard of called survival of the fittest through Darwinism, meaning that in this theory, only the strong survive is kind of what you get. It's a very competitive environment. Resources are limited. There's a completely different way to interpret the data of natural selection, which I'll explain more later. But basically, the environment does select out for the weaker members of the species. But that's a motivation to grow and be one of the stronger members, and anybody can do that. You see, the natural selection can also be studied in terms of cooperation. And let's get everybody stronger so everybody makes it. Everyone can grow and become stronger. And this is another point. It's important for you to hear this, because the general data that our psyches get are survival of the fittest, and there's only a few strong that will make it, and that is not the only way to interpret the data. And in fact, I'll show you more later that it actually makes more sense to interpret it in the sense that cooperation and growth are really what drive evolution, and not competition and only the strong few. So age lock is so much more than I could say in words in terms of the depth of what Nu Skin is doing. This is not like some standard MLM company. This is not any corporate company. This is really deep science, and what Dr. Joe Chang has been able to pull together as a mastermind, we call it in Napoleon Hill. The mastermind of Nu Skin, the amount of scientific brain power on the scientific advisory board, and there is over 100 PhD scientists that are part of Nu Skin, 3 laboratories, one in Utah, Shanghai, Beijing, round the clock research being done on anti-aging, and now we've teamed up with LifeGen Technologies, who has 3 decades of anti-aging research, and you'll see more here. The algorithm is a step-by-step problem-solving procedure to solve a problem in a finite number of steps. That's a basic definition of an algorithm. And the example that Joe gives is with Google. Google search engine has a very special algorithm that only they have that allows Google to search the internet quickly and accurately. And what does that do for Google? It allows them to dominate the market. Because of their algorithm and how efficient it is, most people want to go to Google because it works the best as a search engine. Now we move into AgeLock. AgeLock has an algorithm. It's called Identify, Target, and Reset. These are big words when you're talking about molecular biology. Identifying genes, targeting those genes, and resetting them to youth, okay? All this is possible because of what I just showed you, epigenetics. The environment affects how the cells express their genes, okay? So, I'm going to go through that algorithm. You have to be able to identify the genes. Remember, there's 25,000 human genes. Which ones are age-related? You have to be able to identify those genes. If you're going to target and reset aging genes, you have to first identify them. We have technology to study cellular gene expression, which many molecular biologists do. That's not unique to us. But what we do have is a collaboration that's exclusive with LifeGen Technologies, Stanford, Purdue University. We work with Harvard, UCLA, Columbia, Duke, Beijing, University Health Science Center, Shanghai Medical University, and many, many more. Like 150 different collaborations going on with many, many research facilities, okay? What LifeGen brings to the party, so to speak? Over 26 years studying retarding aging by caloric restriction. Caloric restriction has been the only scientifically validated method of retarding or reversing aging that's been studied so far, okay? They have long-term research, so over that time, they've been able to identify age-related genes that change with age. That we call them youth gene clusters, or you've heard AR supermarkers, age-related supermarkers. The concept being that it takes time. If you're going to watch a person grow from age 10 to age 40 and watch all the genes that are changing over time, that takes 30 years. It's not something that can be accelerated. So we have this 30 years of research already. That's the exclusivity of Nu Skin. For anybody to even start this journey, they're going to have to take 30 years to go in the future to identify genes that change over time. That's important for you to know. So the basics, I'm just going to show you because you see these different diagrams a lot. I just want you to understand them. And none of this you have to tell anybody, but we're finding if this is just in you while you're talking to someone, there's a confidence level and a belief level where you know this will help that person. And so we just talk to everybody about this. People have been extremely receptive to Vitality, but it's not personal to us. We know this will help them because the science is off the charts, okay? So you take cells and they look at their gene expression, okay? And what this is used is this little gene chip that Alan showed you on the other slide. For instance, this is a citrus genome array. There happens to be all the genes for this orange in this chip. Now there's chips that have the whole human genome in this little chip. It's what we use in Nu Skin. The thing that's unique to Nu Skin is you have to know which are the age-related genes on this chip. When you do these studies, you have to be able to target exactly the age-related genes. Okay, so then the chip comes out like this, and then through computer analysis, you get to this kind of a heat map. And you see these heat maps, and I'll just explain it a little so you may understand it better. There's these tiny little bands in this. Every one of them is a gene. There's about 1,400 genes in this line right here. And these happen to be Joe Chang's genes before he took age-like Vitality, and then 15 days later. They took his blood, so this is genetic changes in the blood. Any gene, So red is very high level of expression. So the really bright genes here translate to red here. And the really dim genes, like in that well, there's all these little wells that have DNA in them. That would translate to blue. The blue's called like colder or less expression. So for instance, these really highly expressed genes are being turned down because they're going from red to yellow. These are being turned way down, red all the way to blue. These kind of genes that are yellow or even like a blue gene being turned way up into red. Okay, so that just gives you a little concept, and in terms of our, like in the skin work, this would be, genes turned up would be something like collagen gene for the skin, okay? Something like pigmentation would be something that was turned down, melanin. You would turn down, there are, proteins are constantly being made in the cell, but they're also being chewed up all the time. Cells are very dynamic, DNA is very dynamic, everything's in flux. So when you raise the collagen gene, you also want to turn down the gene called collagenase that eats collagen. That would be more like a younger state. So Nu Skin is brilliant in that they're doing both of those things at the same time. That's why there's such a balance. Okay? So we found 25,000 genes in the human genome, but You've got to know which ones are related to aging.